Was this the best Sunday ever, or was this the best Sunday ever? I mean, dear God, every guy we loved, all our teams just out there crushing. Usually, I'm having to sit here and take L's, but I'm sitting there watching Red Zone going, okay, Jaylen Waddle, what? 40? We'll get into some lessons learned later on in this video, but of course, before we dive into it, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We just hit 111,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for everything. I'm going to continue to do everything that I can for y'all. That includes live streaming every single day, answering all your questions until the season ends without taking a single break. On top of this, answering as many questions as I can, responding to as many comments as possible. At least 200 comments I'm going to respond to down there in that comment section. So if you have anything, leave it down there in the comments. If you want to come out to those live streams, subscribe to the channel, but make sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you get notified when we're live. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these lessons learned. The first lesson learned is league-wide. The rookies are taking over. It is the rookie takeover here. We saw it last week, at least small glimpses of it, starting with the New York Jets. I mean, last week, remember, you had 41 snaps for Garrett Wilson. But with those 41 snaps, about half the amount of snaps that we saw from Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson had more targets than Elijah Moore for the New York Jets. For this reason, we were like, okay, well, yeah, I'm a little bit biased. Yeah, I drafted Garrett Wilson everywhere this year. But it looks like where we thought Garrett Wilson may be the wide receiver one at the end of the season, looks like this may be happening a little bit sooner than we thought. Where this week, yes, you still had Elijah Moore's 66 snaps. You only had Garrett Wilson sitting at 43. It simply did not matter. If we go through and look at the actual production, look at the actual targets, you had Elijah Moore, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 41 receiving yards, whereas Garrett Wilson, 14 targets, 8 receptions, 102 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. We talked about him being an elite wide receiver prospect. He literally had to compete for targets with Chris Olave, the number 11 pick in this year's NFL draft, Jameson Williams, the number 12 pick in this year's NFL draft, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the number 1 wide receiver in the 2023 draft class. At Ohio State, this was possibly one of the best wide receiver rooms of all time in college football. And Garrett Wilson dominated. He went number 10 in this year's NFL draft, an elite level prospect. To see this breakout week 2 of his rookie season, I'm not calling him Jamar Chase. Please don't think I'm talking about Jamar Chase here. But maybe he's another player in Jaylen Waddle, who we'll talk about later on in this video. Let's go down to our next player in that same offense. I hope you listened to us. I hope you bought low on Breece Hall, sold high on Michael Carter. Now, yes, Michael Carter still went through. Michael Carter played the majority of snaps here. He had 42 snaps for Michael Carter and only 20 snaps for Breece Hall. But we are already getting those same indications that Breece Hall is going to take over, very similar to what Garrett Wilson has done here in New York, with what we had with Breece Hall leading the Jets in targets week 1. And now Breece Hall coming out, 7 carries, 50 rushing yards, leading this team in rushing, despite having less than half the snaps of Michael Carter. And on top of this, he gets the receiving touchdown out of this backfield. Could not be more excited to see these rookies taking over in New York, but we are also getting these rookies taking over in Atlanta, where we have Drake London, the number 1 wide receiver in this year's NFL draft class. This was a wide receiver that back at 18 years old at USC, he broke out in an offense that had Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Michael Pittman was a senior while you had Drake London as a freshman here at USC, and Amon-Ra St. Brown was a sophomore playing a year ahead of him. So Drake London being able to break out, Drake London being able to have a large role at USC early on in his NFL career, unbelievably impressive. And now we get Drake London. Week 2, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought you couldn't start him. I looked at the matchup against the Los Angeles Rams and I said, nope, this is going to be gross. We don't know if Ramsey's going to be on Pitts. We don't know if he's going to be on London. We'll talk about Pitts a little later on. But here, it looks like you had London with 12 targets, 8 receptions, 86 receiving yards in a tough matchup. Dear God, I think you can get excited about London rest of season. And our next guy, did not expect this at all, Chris Olave. Now with Chris Olave here, yeah, I mean, this was another wide receiver in that Ohio State wide receiver room, where you had Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, where Chris Olave loved the talent profile, but we looked at the role that you had from Jarvis Landry week 1. Obviously, you have Michael Thomas here, and I was like, you know what? Probably can't start Olave anytime soon. Well, Chris Olave came out 13 targets, 5 receptions, 80 receiving yards. Obviously not an absurd day like you had with Garrett Wilson or Drake London, but still very impressive. He led the New Orleans Saints in targets. He had 13 compared to Michael Thomas at 9. Looks like he himself is going to be breaking out. And then our next rookie, just rookies across the entire league, Damian Pierce. With Damian Pierce, the clear backup behind Rex Burkhead week 1. But I guess Houston figured out, oh, okay, well, we know what we have in Rex Burkhead now. No, thank you. And they got Damian Pierce involved early and often. You had 15 carries going for Damian Pierce. 0 for Rex Burkhead. Now, I don't want to come out here and say Damian Pierce is a league-winning type player. Y'all know I wasn't a massive fan of drafting Damian Pierce in the 5th, 4th round, where he was going by the time draft season was over with, because we looked at this as a very bad offense for the Houston Texans that I really didn't want any piece of. But to be honest with you, I mean, with Damian Pierce, my opinion hasn't changed that much because he isn't getting involved as a pass catcher. You only had 1 target out of the backfield for Damian Pierce here. I think you need some more involvement as a pass catcher if you're going to be playing in the worst offense in the NFL to have that high-end running back 2 upside. So Damian Pierce definitely trending in the right direction, but you need to see him get involved on 3rd down. Now, I think we're done with the rookies. We have those 4 guys clearly emerging. Let's go over and let's focus in on something that I thought I was completely toast with. Let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. Let's look at Cam Akers here. Now, with Cam Akers, y'all know I was the idiot. I'll be the first person to admit I'm still stupid for doing it. I was that idiot that was drafting Cam Akers in the 5th and 6th round of fantasy football drafts this year. I've done a lot of dumb things, especially in my fantasy football career. This may be one of the dumbest, but now it looks like Cam Akers is actually getting involved here in Los Angeles. It looks like Cam Akers 15 carries compared to Darrell Henderson at 10. Cam Akers is also leading this backfield in targets, where Cam Akers had 3 targets out of the backfield. Now, I don't necessarily want to sit here and go, okay, Cam Akers, 15 carries, 3 targets, the best or top 5 offense in the NFL. So we can go through and we can start him every single week. In reality, I think that this is going to make things very difficult. I'm excited because in a best ball format, maybe Cam Akers isn't completely dead, but in a league where you have to submit your starting lineup, in reality, Cam Akers getting involved in splitting this backfield damn near 50-50 with Darrell Henderson is going to make it where maybe Cam Akers himself isn't a league-winning player, but he's also going to block Darrell Henderson from becoming a league-winning player, or maybe this is a 50-50 backfield split where we kind of have to avoid both guys until something changes. Now, going over to a lesson that we learned last week, but just to hammer it in because we thought we could get cute with it. At the end of the week, we did have Travis Etienne, James Robinson ranked back-to-back, but we moved Etienne 1 spot ahead of him. Oh, that was a horrendous call. We thought we learned the lesson last week, but Travis Etienne is essentially fancy J.D. McKissic. Now, yes, I know if we're going to go through, if we're going to look at the snaps where you had James Robinson 45, Travis Etienne 26. You're going to look at the carries where you had James Robinson 23, Travis Etienne 9. In reality, I don't even think that this illustrates what happened quite well. Because this game was blown out where Etienne had some of that involvement at the very end of the game. Like 9 carries, if anything, was generous for Travis Etienne here. I think that if this was going to be a more competitive contest in general, maybe Etienne didn't get to this. Now, Etienne still clearly looked like he was the 3rd down running back. That's why I'm saying it looks like he is fancy J.D. McKissic. But outside of games where you expect the Jacksonville Jaguars to be trailing by multiple touchdowns, it's going to be very difficult for you to go through and play Travis Etienne whatsoever. Now, moving over to our next lesson learned, it looks like Amon-Ra St. Brown straight up a league-winning wide receiver. I know we have some people saying that he is Cooper Kupp. It's hard to get there because Amon-Ra St. Brown, while yes, he was dominant week 1. 12 targets, 8 receptions, 64 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. Week 2, even better. Week 2, he goes out there, 68 rushing yards. He leads the Detroit Lions in rushing. And on top of this, obviously what we care about, 12 targets, yet again, back-to-back weeks, 9 receptions, 116 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Absolutely absurd levels of production here from Amon-Ra St. Brown, continuing what we saw at the end of last year. Now, y'all know, we've never doubted Amon-Ra St. Brown. Never doubted him, specifically for the beginning portion of the season as well. However, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown not someone we want to be selling high right now. I think we continue to ride out that wide receiver one production, continue to view him as that locked in, bona fide, low end wide receiver one. Maybe he's not even a low end wide receiver one. Maybe he's a mid wide receiver one for the next couple months. But long term, I will be somewhat hesitant if we get DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, and Hawkinson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown all in here by the end of the year. Maybe St. Brown is someone that we still want to be reminding ourselves to possibly trade high for that elite level price tag once we get to week 8, 9, and we have Jameson Williams coming on. But until then, ride out this production with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He looks like a league winner. But now going over to our next lesson learned, looks like you cannot start any running back in Baltimore. We kind of knew this, but we thought Kenyan Drake was the guy coming into the week. And yeah, Kenyan Drake, I mean, he did go out there and have the most carries. He had 6 carries, but at the same time, he only had 15 snaps. You had 18 snaps going over to Mike Davis. You had 21 snaps going over to Justice Hill. So outside of J.K. Dobbins, who, for the love of God, I'm hoping, is good to go this upcoming week, looks like you can't start a single running back here in Baltimore. I think it's just going to be a complete crapshoot on what running back actually has the role. I think we kind of knew that, though. But going over to Miami, what everybody's been waiting for, instead of talking about the main guys, we'll talk about the running back usage here because I got suckered in. I thought Chase Edmonds, I was like, oh crap, this was a great workload what we saw week 1. It was a tough matchup against the New England Patriots. But here, when we saw the Baltimore Ravens let up a ton of targets to the combination of Breece Hall and Michael Carter week 1, I thought this was a smash spot for Chase Edmonds. And I was wrong. We have Raheem Mostert with a significantly larger role this week, where Raheem Mostert himself has 39 snaps compared to Chase Edmonds at 36. Where Raheem Mostert has 11 carries compared to Chase Edmonds at 5, where they run essentially the same amount of routes out of the backfield. So overall, I don't know, maybe this Miami Dolphins situation is very comparable to what we have in Los Angeles, where this is going to be a pure 50-50 backfield, where it's going to be very difficult to figure out who has the production, who has the hot hand going into the week. So maybe you're excited if you have these players in best ball, but I think we got too excited about Chase Edmonds after week 1. I mean, I don't think he has that role like we initially thought, but let's just go over to the bread and butter here. Why my life, why my day has been beautiful, why my bank account looks like it's going in one direction. My most drafted wide receiver this year. Y'all know this. We've been talking about him for God knows how long. I drafted over 700 teams this year. My most drafted receiver, Jaylen Waddle. Thank you Tua Tagovailoa. Thank you, Mike McDaniel. I don't know how this is happening. Tua Tagovailoa, 469 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, 11 receptions, 190 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Jaylen Waddle, 11 receptions, 171 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and 19 targets. Are you kidding me? I don't want to come out here and say, oh, Jaylen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, both top 5 wide receivers rest of the way. Of course, it's so hard to project that, especially if we go over and look at what we've seen before from the Baltimore Ravens. We've seen the Baltimore Ravens at the end of last year. Remember the very end of last season with how decimated this secondary was. Give up 525 passing yards to Joe Burrow. Give up 4 passing touchdowns to Burrow. Give up 194 yards to Higgins, 125 to Jamar Chase. So we have seen the Ravens give up this type of production before, but let me have my day in the sun. We take our L's constantly. Can I tell the Jaylen Waddle haters that we told you so? At the end of the day, you got to bet on talent. We knew Waddle had it. You knew Tyreek. Could not be more excited to see this. But now let's go and somewhat take our L. I'm going to put a big asterisk on this L. Cortland Sutton, not someone we were drafting very often because you had to draft him ahead of Jaylen Waddle, and we had Waddle ranked higher. But it looks like Cortland Sutton may be a league winner here. Because the reason I wasn't drafting Cortland Sutton is the splits that we had coming into the season between Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, where it looked like Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 1 in Denver. I stood by that statement. I took Jerry Jeudy a round or 2 later in almost every draft. But now, with Sutton, Tim Patrick down for the year. KJ Hamler, at least out this week, possibly out next. Jerry Jeudy going down with the shoulder injury. You could not paint a better picture here for Cortland Sutton with Russell Wilson in Seattle. 11 targets this week, 7 receptions, 122 receiving yards. for the time being, until Jerry Jeudy's back, Cortland Sutton is a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. Even if I don't have Cortland Sutton in any leagues, I'm not going to be too upset. We were drafting Waddle at the same time. I mean, I can admit that he's going to be a wide receiver 1 here until we get Jerry Jeudy back. Hopefully we have a report tomorrow, and I'm hoping that report says Jerry Jeudy will be back this week, but at this point, we just have no idea. And now, our last lesson learned. Kyle Pitts may not be who we thought he was. Now, I do not want to overreact here, because with Kyle Pitts, he was the best tight end prospect of all time. I did not draft him as a rookie. I thought his rookie price was egregious, and I got lucky with it, because Kyle Pitts came out over 1,000 receiving yards as a rookie, 110 targets as a rookie. Dominated to an extent where he was the best rookie tight end of all time after being the best tight end prospect of all time. I think to go through and to give up on Kyle Pitts through 2 weeks when one of those weeks was going up against the Los Angeles Rams, I think it's going to be a little bit premature here, but it's definitely getting scary. Don't be surprised. Don't hate me when you may or may not see Kyle Pitts on a buy low video this week. I feel like our buy low videos have been hitting pretty hard lately, but regardless, he has to be someone we're worried about. It looks like the fantasy football community, including myself, we may have been wrong on him, but hey, double or nothing, right? Double or nothing. Now that's all I got for y'all in this video. Really hope you enjoyed it. Of course, go down there, drop a like if you did. Make sure you're dropping that like if you have Jaylen Waddle on your team because of us. Also, subscribe to the channel if you want to join the flock. Make sure you hit that bell next to the subscribe button because we're going to be live streaming every single day answering your questions until the season ends. And also, if you have any questions, if you have anything to say at all, just go to the comments section. I'm going to be responding to as many comments as I possibly can, at least 200 comments. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, and I hope we get to see you with the live stream after the Monday night game.